Hello. And to just jump right into it, the powerful big secret to improving your TOEFL score, the big habit, is for 15 minutes a day, starting today, 4 to 6 days a week, read a non-fiction book out loud. And a couple of other things to make sure that you have the full value from it. So today we're going to teach you why this is so important, why to start doing it now, how to use those 15 minutes so that in a week, 2, 3 weeks, you can start noticing the difference in your comprehension, in your skill for the reading section, as well as the listening, speaking, and writing. So we have a student, right? Kay, we'll call her Kay. You'll see her success story, a link to it below, where she improved 14 points in the reading. She jumped from an 11 to a 25 and scored 105 overall on the TOEFL with months of hard work with habits like this. This was a fundamental part of that success. So I want to let you know this works and is important. So, as you already know, likely, this is your big, secret, critical TOEFL habit. And this is our focus on our TOEFL Talk with NoteFull episode number 17, which is what you're watching, where we discuss the tips and tricks, the critical training, and do our best to provide the personal support to get you all the way up to your TOEFL dream score. So this image, some of you may know, this is from a movie called The Shining. So as you can tell, it's trying to be a bit scary. But the first reason why is because they're similar. So you see why we have twins on the screen. A non-fiction book, more than a fiction book, and we're going to talk about the specific kinds. The fact that you want to focus a little bit more on self-help non-fiction books. You want to focus on psychology-based fiction books, psychology-based non-fiction books, science books, also non-fiction, and history and other things work too, but those three are the best because you can consider one sister the TOEFL, the entire academic structure for the reading, listening, speaking, and writing, and how you are expected to explain and communicate for the speaking and the writing. So the nonfiction books, when you read out loud, it's doing so many things to help you develop that pattern. And we're going to analyze that in a little bit to make it even clearer. So they're very similar. The second reason is if you look at the screen, this is from SpongeBob, right? Cartoon. And you see the upper body is very strong. So the reason why you want to start doing this today, 4 to 6 days a week, every week until you pass, if you're serious about overcoming where you're stuck on sections and really improving, is you see his legs, right? He has tiny, little, skinny legs. That's weak, right? If you take out those legs, all that other muscle isn't going to work so much. So it's not proportional. So what's happening is when you study for the TOEFL, first we concentrate on comprehension, building your way of reading and listening to improve your score as well as your speaking and writing. We also learn TOEFL strategies and techniques. But if right now you're wanting to improve your TOEFL score, and the main way you're doing that is by studying for the TOEFL, we're missing something. Listening to podcasts, watching movies, excellent. Reading books, excellent. But reading out loud in this very specific way we're going to talk about for 15 minutes, it's going to start to support you because when you start to study, let's say, the reading, you start to study summary questions, and you start to build your skill of understanding how to answer that question, breaking down a reading article into a beginning, middle, and end so that you can more quickly and easily and accurately choose correctly. Let's say you study that, 2 to 4 hours today, and then tomorrow you read for 15 minutes out loud. You're reading a chapter in a nonfiction book, which is like the TOEFL, as we saw before with the twin sisters there, because the nonfiction standard is to present information in a very logical way. So when you read a section or when you read a chapter, it has a beginning, middle, and end. So you start to read that way. You start to read it with different vocabulary. You start to do it when you're not stressed with time, when you're not stressed with TOEFL strategy, so your brain can see that pattern in a more comfortable way. And that builds your comprehension overall. So you don't have some very strong parts of your body, your skill for the TOEFL, and other parts really weak, which is what leads to studying so hard and still not seeing results even after a month or two. So the next thing is, okay, we're reading out loud. When you're reading out loud, there are a couple things that you want to do. You want to record yourself, maybe for 3 minutes, right? You read out loud for 3 minutes, you record yourself, and then you listen to yourself. We don't always like to do that, right? I know I don't always like to do it, but when you do listen out loud to yourself, you start to pick up very clearly where your pronunciation is weak, where you're struggling a little bit. So just hearing yourself, and sometimes you don't even have to record yourself, because when you start hearing yourself for that much time, you pick up your habits and you start working to change them. And if you're part of NoteFull, I know many of you are already registered students. You know that we do a lot of training on how to improve your delivery, eliminate ums and uhs, word grouping, intonation, pronunciation. So this is a way to really build that skill more comfortably with a wide variety of vocabulary and grammar, because nonfiction books tend to support whatever they're discussing with varied examples. So as you go from chapter to chapter, you're going to be reading about very different concepts and ideas often. So that's going to help you to practice with different words. So feel confident, feel comfortable, right? You don't have to scream out loud, but you're imagining yourself on the TOEFL. The next thing is you want to pick 2 sentences, right? So you see Bart Simpson, a character here, and I'll kind of describe every image below just to give an easy reference. But you see, I must not write all over the wall. So that's actually what I want you to do. You want to pick 2 sentences that you like, and we're going to do this together, that you feel, I like the way this is expressed. I like the punctuation here. I like the clarity. 2 sentences that are right next to each other. And I want you to rewrite them by hand 3 times within those 15 minutes. And for some of you who have a little bit more time and you need to improve your TOEFL score 10, 20 points, then you might want to be doing this 30 minutes a day, 4 to 6 times a week. Because when you rewrite 3 times, you're doing several things. First, you're reviewing capitalization, you're reviewing punctuation, you're reviewing spelling, you're also with 2 sentences, that's the magic. You're seeing how one sentence, like the second one, develops and continues the idea of the first. So you're building your understanding of connection. Also, you're getting comfortable with the writing. So you're training your brain when it reads to kind of be practicing pronunciation, to be studying the sentences for spelling, grammar, explanation, connection, clarity. So underneath, very simply, you're improving all sections. You're also hearing yourself speak. So it's an indirect way of studying listening comprehension, because you're hearing the words as you're reading them out loud. Now, the next thing is we're going to actually go into an example so I can make it more clear exactly what we're doing. So again, below this video, I'm going to present several links of the books that we've read. We often read books related to adult education and helping people break habits so that we can help you succeed faster. One of those books that's great is Switch, and you'll see why, because here is the first page of the second chapter of Switch. Find the bright spots. Well, if you're studying with NoteFull, or if you start studying, we train you to always read the title, to always understand what you're reading about. That happens in writing question number 1. You get a title there. That happens in the lectures. They tell you what kind of class you're listening to. The first 30 to 45 seconds tells you what it's about. Every reading has a title. Question number 2, 3 of the speaking have readings that have titles. So you're going to start training yourself to pay attention, find the bright spots. These are edited, really carefully constructed books, so that title means something. So as you read, you remember that title, and that's what we teach you to do. So it gives you a comfortable way with varied vocabulary, kind of an infinite amount of material to be building your skills. And so let's see how it begins. In 1990, Jerry Sternin was working for Save the Children, the international organization that helps children in need. He'd been asked to open a new office in Vietnam. The government had invited Save the Children into the country too. So do you notice how this begins with an example? This is powerful because as you study, you're recognizing this example is teaching you something. And in order for you to know what it's teaching, you're going to have to finish the story. So a lot of times when we read in the TOEFL, when we listen in the lectures, when we speak or when we write, there's this disconnection that often in order to understand an idea, we need to read, listen, explain, or write in a very connected way over 100 or a few hundred words. So this is reminding you of that. And here's the power. Because when we go a few pages ahead in chapter 2, look at the way most of these nonfiction books we're recommending, the ones related to self-help, the ones related to psychology, the ones related to science. History is good, but sometimes can be challenging because they can refer to so many places, so many people, and so many dates that it can be overwhelming. But if it's a subject you're interested in, works perfectly. Let's read the pages ahead, right? This is like 5-6 pages ahead. Notice that Sternin was trying to focus the mother's writers, the overall topic. What can you do to make your children healthier? Now, the reason why I'm focusing on this, because you see the language. Notice that Sternin, the author, is directly talking to you and asking you to remember what you just read. So again, with nonfiction books and with what we train you to succeed, our way of reading, our way of listening, speaking, and writing has to transform with this new level of clarity. And so it's this ability to remember what you just said, what you just wrote, what you just read, what you just heard. It's an expectation that you can remember it later. So you might not be thinking of it, but in order to read a nonfiction book well, you're going to be developing the skill of short-term memory, of keeping this information in this chapter in your head. And they're helping you. Now, they use a lot of metaphors. And that's why we don't recommend fiction books, because sometimes the metaphors are really more difficult to follow. Sometimes, depending on what you're reading, it can be more poetic and tough. So the mother's writers, so it's not actually writers, but the author is presenting a metaphor of an elephant as a habit and a rider as the brain. And so the rider is on the elephant, and so they're trying to create an illustration for you that the elephant is not easy to manage. So it's like your brain is not so strong to immediately change your habits. So look over here. After all, every mother's elephant. So you don't realize this, but on the TOEFL, it's so significant. Training you for over 10 years, right? At NoteFull, we've been helping you get your dream score for 13 plus years. Tough questions are the ones that have a reference to something that you have to remember. So for example, let's say in the beginning of a reading, the professor is talking about something about the different gases that exist around a planet to form its atmosphere. And then when they talk about the atmosphere, they might use a different word. They might say the pressure, right? The pressure from the atmosphere. And then let's say you read the second, third paragraph, and the third paragraph might say the pressure. So your brain has to not only realize the pressure is relating to the pressure from the gases in the atmosphere, but it must learn that the pressure is the focus. So this is helping you to recognize this word equals something else. So every time I see it, my brain always has to think of something else. So the power is that as you study the TOEFL intensely, especially with our training, and you have this habit, the patterns that we teach you to help you build your comprehension, answer more correctly, are going to help you when you read, and they're going to feed each other. When you're listening to yourself out loud, it's the same pattern in the listening. When you're speaking out loud, it's a dramatic way to practice your ability to speak comfortably on the speaking. And when you're rewriting those two sentences 3 times, you're helping yourself for the writing and the way you concentrate when you read. Very, very important. Big secret, because it's not a major focus that we don't see, but there's nothing more critical to supporting your success than having this other resource that indirectly is related to the TOEFL but is very similar. So you lose a lot of that pressure and stress. Because when you do a TOEFL reading, this is hard. I have to get my TOEFL. I have to pass right away. But when you read a nonfiction book you're interested in, you're more relaxed, and it'll help support the learning as a result that you're more relaxed. So let's say we go to this second paragraph here. And again, remember the power of the 1% milk campaign? So they're actually, I believe, referring to an example in the first chapter. So again, it's just so much excellent training in helping you see. You have to remember what you read. You have to be comprehending. You have to know it's just the pattern that you need in order to boost your comprehension. But you see a comma, right? You also see parentheses and quotation marks. You see the quotation marks in the position of the period. So if you were to pick these two sentences, remember the power of the 1% milk campaign, comma, which made an abstract idea, parentheses, quotation mark, eat healthier, quotation mark, parentheses, practical, period. Sternin was saying, colon, capital L, let's, with an apostrophe, not sit around analyzing malnutrition with quotation marks with the period inside the quotation mark. So when you rewrite that 2 times, your punctuation is going to improve dramatically. Your capitalization, well, part of punctuation, right, is going to improve. Your spelling is going to improve. And this natural way of referencing and creating connection will help. So you just want to pick 2 sentences that you like. So it might be something more simple, like these 2. The mothers needed direction, comma, not motivation. That's a unique grammatical structure. They needed this, comma, not that. I wanted one thing, comma, not the other. So you get to see these patterns and you can write them. And when you write like that and a grader sees that on your writing, when you have a pattern of speaking like that, it shows fluency. It gets your score. You continue, after all, comma, every mother's apostrophe S, elephant, is going to be motivated to make her children healthier. And why is elephant capitalized? Because what you're going to learn is that elephant is being used as a specific name of something. So it actually represents something. It's not just an elephant, which would be lowercase. So these are things that you're going to study that you can research and you can Google, right? Appropriate usage of commas, when do you capitalize words? And also below we have our course to train you on grammar for the TOEFL called the Jewel, where we focus on these things specifically. So again, if you read the information below the video, you'll have all those details. So now you know what you're doing. You're reading out loud for pronunciation. You're reading out loud to help you build the structure of how you read, reinforcing habits. You're picking 2 sentences and rewriting them 3 times to build so many important skills. And if you really need to improve fast, then instead of maybe 15 minutes, 4 to 6 days a week, you want to be doing this 30 minutes. So with that said, let's review, right? So we want to be doing this at least 15 minutes a day, 4 to 6 days a week. We want to pick a nonfiction book in self-help, psychology, or science that we're interested in, because the pattern and the structure of the way they're written, like these twins, is a twin of the TOEFL, reading, listening, speaking, and writing. We need to do this because it creates a balance. If we're only trying to improve our English with the TOEFL, we're going to improve less quickly, right? So those were the small legs with the big upper body. So we're reading out loud comfortably and confidently, trying to improve our pronunciation, thinking of our speaking section, also taking time to search our vocab in those pages that we read as well. We're picking 2 sentences next to each other, and we're doing them over and over 3 times at least, so that we build mastery. And here's an example of a book that we chose where you kind of saw the power of how a nonfiction book, a well-written nonfiction book, especially the ones we recommend below, is really going to help you to build the skills that you're training with on the TOEFL. I would not go more than 30 minutes because then it's a little bit too much time. You want to be still major focus on the TOEFL material, but 15 to 30 minutes, 4 to 6 days a week, reading the nonfiction book out loud, as we discussed. And so, with that said, we conclude, and I urge you right now to either get a nonfiction book or even a fiction book just to start the habit after this video to get started. Feel the benefit. You'll feel it right away after 15 or 30 minutes. And then go below this video and pick your nonfiction book that you like. And if you'd like to keep working together, the next step, again, just click on the link below. You'll see the courses that we have. So as you see in the image, you want to start studying together. If you're not already, we can create a strong partnership. So we build all of these skills. We introduced all of the right habits so that every day, every week, you're getting better to your dream score. You can do it. It was a pleasure as usual. The first thumbs up goes up to you for studying as hard as you are, watching this video from beginning to end. Hope it helped. Let us know in the comment section below if there's anything else you need help with. In the next video, we'll concentrate on one of the sections that you need help with. But until the next video, stay strong, connect with us with the links below, and know that your success is coming. So until next time, bye-bye.